We joined now by political analyst Sandile Swana for a discussion on this. Very good evening to you, Mr. Swana. Thank you so much for speaking to us. There's so much to talk about. I actually don't know where to start, but perhaps the obvious place for me is the whole issue of organizational renewal, calling on the Youth League to claim its autonomy. Now, I want to refer to its 55th National Conference resolution, particularly in finance, organizational and program sustainability. And it reads that the current organizational structure of the ANC is not fit for purpose at all levels of the organization. So this gauntlet, this challenge that the president is throwing to the new ANC Youth League leadership, does it have the teeth to execute this?
Well, I think I would like to give them some credit as newcomers coming into the leadership of the ANC Youth League. It's like these are people who are like joining the Comrades Marathon 2 hours late. They've been out in the cold for a very, very long time. I'm not even sure if they are match fit right now. But we hope that over the next 3 to 5 years, they'll be able to start picking up the pieces. Number one, the funding of the party, the structures of the party, we've seen now when they were organizing this conference, that they are still in disarray. They are not able to start on time. They are not able to give themselves, get their credentials adopted on time. They are still in disarray. The funding of the party as a whole and funding of the Youth League in particular is going to be a headache. So these young people have got to be very creative in how they can fund the party legitimately without actually entangling themselves in the tender system of the state.
And some of these obstacles were noted by the president. One he didn't mention, and I'd like to align it to what you just said, the resource environment. The Political Party Funding Act has created challenges, and the leagues have in the past complained about the inability to raise funds for membership. Even as the president says, we are counting on you to help us bring home the 2024 elections, and particularly the youth cohort. Internally, what challenges would arise in doing this, achieving this momentous task?
The greatest challenge that has happened with the youth in the meanwhile, bear in mind that the youth certainly from the 1960s, starting with Steve Biko into the 70s, Zetsi Masinini and others, right up into the 80s, the youth of South Africa, without the funding that is now a big problem, actually organized very many renowned campaigns by being linked to the ordinary people on the ground, being well organized in the schools, well organized in the colleges and universities with very little money. The youth of today are so budget conscious, so resource intensive that they are unable to get the job done. They don't know how to walk a township from street to street, how to walk anywhere. Everything must be with expensive cars, hired cars, this, that, and the other. So this current new leadership has got to rethink this whole thing and be a proper youth if they are going to succeed in their job.
The president actually referring to them as an organization of international repute, that they've got a global profile. And from what you're saying, he was also saying them, they are now the voice of the youth, that they've got to find themselves relevant. Can the youth of today relate to the ANC Youth League of today? In the past, the criticism has been that they're not active, they don't mobilize. In fact, what they do is they throw money around, they're seen as too important to even engage the ordinary man on the street. Some of these challenges, reputational brand challenges, aren't they going to be even more difficult to overcome?
Remember that the youth of South Africa, from a political point of view, the youth are the worst voters. They are not participating in political processes. And some of the researchers are saying actually the youth are going to be the most difficult to mobilize to be voters and so on and so forth. having said that, there are other types of younger organizations that have come up, the Songezo Zipis, Mzansi Arise, this, that, and the other thing. A new way of thinking. You are not going to come up as a Peter Mukaba today or stuff like that, a young lion that is roaring all over the show. The problems facing our youth are so severe that they need a very competent leadership. For instance, the problem of drug abuse. Our children are finished by drugs. Our children are unable, before the age of 35, to buy townhouses, to buy houses, to get married, start families. They are unable to get jobs. So you are dealing with a youth that is largely, in my opinion, even more unviable than the youth pre-1994, the black youth pre-1994. So these leaders have got a very big job. They cannot be high-class, high society type leaders who are distant from the people. They need to, the skill set is different that is needed to rescue the youth of South Africa from the current calamity that it is in.
Renewal modernization is something the President spoke about quite often, and he spoke about the 27 strategic document in terms of what informs the mandate of this current youth league, given what the observation has been by some that the top six, this top six is actually quite representative of the regions that have been central to voting it in. Do you think that's a very important factor, and their various accomplished personalities, how will they then interpret this renewal, this modernization, especially when looking back to the 2017 strategic document on how to move forward?
Yeah, the issue of regions in South Africa, it is lately quite important. I mean, for instance, there's always a comment about KZN, and I believe KZN got in the elections what they wanted. But I think renewal is not just about, should not be about regions per se, but about the depth of skill to deal with these problems of an ANC that is operating correctly in a new landscape. They are coming into a field where the ANC itself has had a long track record from 2007 until now of failure and mediocrity. And their own dissolution, the removal of Julius Malema, the removal of the Magakas of this world, and Floyd Shibambo, and so on and so forth, all of those things have actually, where the autonomy of the ANC Youth League was questioned with new ideas and more robust programs that are now in the EFF. So all of those things need to be reconsidered, but I think they need to be more humble. I don't see this new leadership taking the ANC Youth League to dizzy heights or modernizing them in any significant way within 3 years. But that needs to be done, but it's going to take a long time to get it done.
And the President pointing to the ANC Constitution and how it grants the Youth League autonomy, not just structurally, administratively, but that they should now be able to take their own decisions, saying that they're looking to them to help them reach higher heights themselves. Economic transformation, radical economic transformation has been something though that has created fissures, and in some cases, it's been said from within the party, has seen others overlooked because of their different so-called ideological posture. Your thoughts on this?
I heard the speaker there of giving the political report, that Hassan, now, and she was saying these 7 cardinal pillars of the EFF actually basically were stolen from the Youth League, this, that, and the other, and that they need to reclaim that space. But I think that if you go back to where they think they lost the plot with Julius Malema, and you try to be a later day Julius Malema, with the current leadership, especially of Cyril Ramaphosa and company, you are going to be fired from the Youth League. This idea of an autonomous Youth League is something that needs to be taken with a pinch of salt, because the person who was really the anvil and hammer of the removal of Julius Malema is Cyril Ramaphosa himself. I don't think independent thought, innovative thought, inventive thinking and creative thinking is a hallmark of the ANC today. And the evidence of that are the many stillborn ideas that have caused this country to be in a malaise and a catastrophe as we speak now.
How would you characterize, finally, the youth policy architecture of our day, which is the phrase that the president used while looking back at the former caliber of leaders and where we are now? How do we translate into characterizing this leadership when he says the youth policy architecture of our day?
The youth policy architecture of our day, across, let's say in South Africa as a whole, under the governorship of the governance of the ANC in South Africa, is very poor. Merit across the board is not what is there. And to be sincere, I mean, I did try to look at the CVs and the academic backgrounds and all those types of things of the people who are being put at the top, including the president of the Youth League. Those credentials, robust credentials that could compete with Lembede, are not there. They are just not there. These cannot compete with Lembede. To mention Lembede in the context of these leaders is to be cruel. Our policies of developing our youth, we don't have a cradle-to-grave type of human development policy where once the mother is pregnant, you start the development process. To compare favorably with Finland and other countries that develop very well competitive youth, we don't have those things. So our youth can be anything because it's a random process of development, if we can call it a process of development or an architecture of youth development at all.
All right, thank you so much for your time and insights. Political analyst Sandile Swana, just speaking to us about some of the salient issues coming out of President Cyril Ramaphosa's address to the ANC Youth League's 26th conference as it rounds up. We will speak to my colleague Samkele Maseko also to just find out what the latest is and what some of the resolutions coming out of the conference are.